playing against Bobby Colegrove playing Elves.
Yeah, anything unusual in this elf deck, or is it just pretty much, par for the course?
A main deck, Viridian Shaman, but other than that, pretty straightforward.
What does he have big? Does he have Craterhoof Behemoth and the Regal Force, or just the Behemoth?
2 copies of Craterhoof Behemoth, which has kind of become the industry standard recently.
Meanwhile, Ben Wienburg, nothing too unusual, although worth noting, he does have Gitaxian Probe, one of the many legacy players to be making you a happy camper this weekend.
Finally starting to get it.
Yeah, absolutely. Although, I mean, is it fair to call this rug when he's got access to so many black cards like Dismember and Surgical Extraction?
Yes. We don't count those. The Phyrexian mana cards we do not count.
I mean, Gitaxian Probe's a blue card, right?
Yeah, but we don't count it as adding colors to the deck.
All right. Each player at 7.
I believe Ben has gone down to 6.
No, Ben!
So Elves, primarily a combo deck that can win through Glimpse of Nature, essentially drawing its entire deck. It can also natural order for Craterhoof Behemoth and win from a semi-advanced board. And as a tertiary plan, can go beatdowns with just a squadron of 1/1s and 2/2s.
Yeah, now Elves has been taking off in recent months. What's prompted this? What sparked this resurgence?
I think it's a mixture of a couple things. One is the Legend rule change to Gaia's Cradle makes it a substantially more powerful card than it was in previous iterations of the deck. Every additional Gaia's Cradle you draw is 5, 6, 7, 8 mana instead of a dead draw, so that's a huge upgrade. I also think the lists have just become a lot more tuned. Of any deck in Legacy, I think Elves is the one that has just incrementally improved the most over time as people have started building better lists.
All I know is that Bobby Colegrove is dead to me. Is that really land before spells? Land in front of creatures?
Yes, it is.
This is the big leagues, man. You can't just do that.
I know. If it were up to me, he would be disqualified without prize, but I don't make the rules. You see Bobby have a good setup turn last turn, adding a Virtual Ranger, a Deathrite Shaman, and a Wirewood Symbiote to his board. Ben untaps, flips his Insectile Aberration, reveals Brainstorm.
That's got to be real close to unsportsmanlike conduct.
Yes.
At least brushing up against it. I mean, it's not quite like Adrian Sullivan upside down levels of unsportsmanlike conduct, but it's like at least flirting with the topic.
Adrian Sullivan Bizarro World magic where everything's in reverse.
Oh, oh my God. Yep. As long as you know what all your cards do, maybe you can get away with that, but man. So what is Ben Wienburg looking for here?
Well, there's a couple reasonable pieces of disruption. Of course, his counter spells are quite productive. His lightning bolts provide some amount of disruption, and Stifle is valuable here as well, as it can stop a Craterhoof Behemoth trigger.
Oh, okay. It's a big game.
But this Elf deck doesn't have to go off to win the game. You can win by just advancing your board, drawing a bunch of cards. You see Wirewood Symbiote in play with Elvish Visionary. That's a source of steady card advantage. So Bobby can just play creatures and attack with them. Doesn't really need to go off to win the game.
Not a lot of flyers in this elf deck to potentially block the Insectile Aberration.
No, it's no removal spells and no flyers, so it's just in play.
What do you think is the best elf with flying ever printed?
Gaia's Skyfolk?
Oh, that's a good answer. That's a good answer.
I'd have to think about it a little bit more, but that's the one that comes to mind.
Hey, it beats Avian Changeling.
It does. Changelings don't count, come on. All right, so Bobby attempts to redeploy the Elvish Visionary. He bounced to his hand with the Wirewood Symbiote. It's going to prompt a response from Ben here.
Are we looking at a possible daze? Just brainstorm to see if maybe there's one under the hood.
Yeah. I think he would be happy to daze here because the time is running out for daze to be a relevant Magic card.
Yeah, with that Wirewood Symbiote having already activated, there's not even the possibility of untapping the Findorn Elf. But it does not appear that daze is in the cards for Ben.
So we'll see momentarily. Ben's likely to let this resolve, and it does. Bobby finds his second Craterhoof Behemoth.
So I remember when it first came out, Beck and Call was kind of the talk of, oh my gosh, you can play with more Glimpse of Natures now. but in the end, it looks like it hasn't really seen any widespread adoption.
Second color is a big cost.
You don't think it's just the two costs? It's the other color?
I think they're both factors, but I think the second color is a bigger factor than the second mana.
Okay, fair enough.
I think if elves had access to GG, Glimpse of Nature, 1 or 2 copies would be in the deck.
Sure.
So Insight Tile Arbitration across again. Ben adds a third land. And the number of meaningful cards that Ben has access to in his deck is quickly diminishing. Winning on the ground is not really relevant anymore. Individual spot removal like Lightning Bolt's unlikely to do much. It can act as a burn spell.
It is a time walk.
Yeah. It's Lava Spike, but it's not going to affect the board appreciably at this point.
Wasteland, one of his usual relevant pieces of disruption for hitting a cradle, not really relevant in this particular game, as Bobby has been doing all of this off of one basic forest.
All right, so Ben draws a Lightning Bolt. He can use this to KO Wirewood Symbiote if he wants to. A lot of argument for that play. He can also hold it and use it as Lava Spike. Appears that he's taking care of the symbiote. In response to this, Bobby uses Deathrite Shaman to add a mana. Picks up the Elvish Visionary and attempts to untap the Deathrite Shaman. And then removes the Ponder to deal 2 points of damage. Heritage Druid rather, the draw. That is now 3 green mana.
Bobby going kind of large.
A green mana left over. And there is Glimpse. So next turn we might see some real fireworks. A Llanowar Elf. And passes the turn, so Bobby is going to untap next turn with a lot of mana. Insight Tile Aberration across for 3 points of damage. Ben adds another Delver of Secrets and a Tarmogoyf. And now we'll see what Bobby can do.
Yeah, this is where things go pretty wild, right?
Potentially, yeah. This can be a huge turn. Bobby draws Natural Order. Natural Order not at its best here, as Bobby already has both copies of Critterhoof Behemoth in hand. And no other biggies to get in his deck. No Progenitus, no Regal Force.
At a certain point, it becomes worth it to go get a Nettle Sentinel, right?
Potentially. So Bobby's going to start off the action here with a Natural Order.
What do you think about this line instead of Glimpse? I mean, does he just not have very many creatures in his hand to play?
Yeah, he has a Viridian Shaman and 2 copies of Craterhoof Behemoth, so hard for him to get a lot of traction with Glimpse.
At least with the Symbiote, he'll be able to not only bounce a creature, but potentially draw an extra card if it's a Visionary.
Yeah.
Plus, get some sweet, sweet untap action.
I don't know if this was the creature Ben exactly expected Bobby to get here, but here we go. Here is Glimpse.
We got ourselves a storm count situation.
I think he's just tracking the mana.
Sure.
So 2 green in the pool, uses the symbiote, bounces the Visionary, untaps the Finhorn Elf. And I think Ben may be contemplating using this Stifle that's in his hand. All right, so there's the Visionary. He's going to draw a card of that and draw from Glimpse.
Nettle Sentinel was a real big draw right there.
All right, so no mana left over. There's a Nettle Sentinel. Adds 2 mana through Birchlore Rangers. Quirion Dryad, that's going to tap the Sentinel. Ben's going to give that a quick read.
We got a reader.
And imagine if Bobby's able to find a cradle here. He still has not played a land. Return the forest to his hand, untap the Finhorn Elf. And Bobby's going to try to avoid playing this forest as long as he can here to ensure that he has as many looks at Gaea's Cradle as possible. Deathrite Shaman. A second glimpse.
He's a little too choked on mana to glimpse like that, isn't he?
I mean, if he has 2 mana floating right now, I think he has enough to play with. All right, so this is a Zenith for 1, it looks like.
Getting is this a Nettle Sentinel?
Yep, so he's adding 2 mana in response, so he has... Unclear exactly how much mana he has floating right now.
Perhaps a Zenith for 1, go get a Nettle Sentinel, leaving 1 floating.
Yep. And then you can cast a second glimpse and really start to go. I think Ben may be asking if he's past the point now where this Nettle Sentinel can do this operation. So we shall see momentarily. All right, so it looks like Glimpse is going to resolve. There's a Symbiote.
More untaps, more bounces to keep the glimpse going.
Yep. Bobby would ideally like to get a spot where he can cast the second copy of Glimpse, then things become very easy.
Any chance he's going to bounce the Quirion Ranger just for even more untapping?
I don't think so, because he's not in a position where that Ranger is going to... If he was actually returning a land to his hand he was intending to use on mana, that would be one thing. So now 2 mana. Elvish Visionary. That's a draw 2, and there's the cradle. Here we go. Now mana is no longer a bottleneck. Adds 2 mana. There's a Glimpse. Gonna untap the Nettle Sentinel. Cradle getting added for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 green mana. All right, and here is Crater Hoof. Draw 2 off a Glimpse. Triggers Hoof. Ben has the Stifle. Now plays Nettle Sentinel. Draws 2. Adds 2 mana. Visionary, that's going to tap both the Sentinels. That's a draw 3. There's 3 mana.
Now he's got to keep sorted. Oh, I guess no, he doesn't. None of his creatures have the bonus, but he still should keep track of which creatures are not summoning sick, right?
Yes. Well, I think both Nettle Sentinels got played to the board this turn, and everything else is tapped. So,
for now.
So this is a big setup turn. Here's another Symbiote. If Bobby can't win this turn, he's almost certainly setting up his board to be able to win the following turn. You can see he's turning his Wirewood Symbiotes upside down. This is to represent that they've been activated this turn, since they don't tap or have anything else to indicate that they've used their once per turn activated power. There's 3 mana.
Got to be careful not to run out of cards.
Yeah, Glimpse is a mandatory. This comes up.
Absolutely.
Now he can get to the game state where if he has copies of Zenith, he can generate enough mana to continuously put Zeniths back in his deck, play a creature, draw Zeniths, recast them. So he can play every creature in his deck, assuming that the number of Zeniths he has cast, or sorry, the number of glimpses he has cast is equal to the number of Zeniths he has access to. But if you play more glimpses than you have Zeniths, then things can get awkward. I've learned a lot about the subtleties of elves over the last couple of months.
Yeah. Seen your fair share?
Oh, yeah. And Bobby's just going for the maximum possible setup this turn.
I mean, he's got the other Craterhoof in his hand.
Yes.
Does he have access to enough mana? I mean, he's already looking at 6 mana. He's got 3 floating with 3 elves. That's 6 right there.
Certainly if he gets to the position where he has a third copy of Nettle Sentinel, then it's not even too challenging. It looks like he just has it. Here's another natural order.
Another Nettle Sentinel.
Would stand to reason. Gonna go with a Visionary instead.
Sure.
We've had 2 natural orders for side grades in this match. Not too often you see that.
And he still has 1 Queer and Ranger available to be used.
Doing some math here. Not really any risk of getting killed next turn, realistically, even if these Delver flips. Then we need to come up with 4 points of burn. So I think he may be ready to just go beat down to the Craterhoof Behemoth.
Huh. He really can't cast the other Craterhoof in his hand?
Well, it appears that he has run out. He just has the 2 Nettle Sentinels. And if he runs out of 1 casting cost elves, then he's not generating mana.
Yeah, and he can't use this other Queer and Ranger for lack of a forest.
Right. Now, he's got a lot left over. You know, just because he failed to win the game this turn doesn't mean he's really much of a risk of failing to go off the following turn. Because going off could simply be tap by Cradle, cast Craterhoof Behemoth, the end.
Yep.
And so Bobby just discards the hand size, loses a bunch of fetch lands.
Wienburg looking for 2 bolts. 2 of his 3 remaining lightning bolts would be the game. Not the most complicated situation to be in. He's got a brainstorm, so even if the top 2, you know, he doesn't need to, I mean, he can still draw both.
And he has to assume at this point that the Craterhoof is in hand. Bobby's natural ordered several times.
Yep.
And failed to find it, so. Force of Will, Spell Pierce.
And Ben packs it in.
It's about to,
Reconsiders, and he is out.
Yep, so Bobby shows the Craterhoof Behemoth. Not even clear that was necessary because just the knuckleheads in play were good enough to get it done. And Bobby Colegrove quickly up a game with elves.
So in the sideboard, Ben Wienburg has access to Croson Grip, Ancient Grudge, Sulfur Elemental, Dismember, Surgical Extraction, Flusterstorm, Grim Lavamancer, Pyroblast, Spell Pierce, Vendilion Click, and Rough Tumble. This is a real nice sideboard against elves. Having 2 Rough Tumbles to sweep the board and 2 Grim Lavamancers to lock him out. I mean, that's a nice little. Plus, Dismember obviously is an additional, you know, an additional tool to try to disrupt the combo.
Yeah, so I like those 5 cards quite a bit. On Bobby's side, 3 copies of Abrupt Decay, 4 Thoughtseizes, 3 Cabal Therapies, a Natural Order, a Progenitus, a Galactic, a Solid Prime Mage, and a Scavenging Ooze. I suspect that you're going to see the Scavenging Ooze come in. Ben's very reliant on his graveyard between Tarmogoyf and his copies of Nibblebond Goose. I think you're going to see Natural Order for Progenitus coming in this matchup as well. He has to assume that if anything, Ben's going to go with some sort of removal overload, whether it's Pyroclasm effects, Grim Lavamancers. Craterhoof Behemoth may be a less stable way of trying to win the game in the post-board games, but Progenitus just does it all by itself.
I like it. Yeah, I think Progenitus will be real good in this matchup.
You don't even have to worry about Edict effects either. Just get it into play.
Yeah, I mean, you've got guys to sacrifice. You definitely have guys to sacrifice.
All sorts.
Yeah. I do think that that the Progenitus plan is sturdy, not airtight against the prospect of getting raced by a by a Delver of Secrets. Do you think it's possible that Vendilion Click comes in for more flying racing?
I think so. Winning on the ground's really tough. And the Elf deck does have a lot of hands that are all set up with one piece of action, whether it's the Glimpse or a natural order. And so Vendilion Click's discard power can be relevant a lot of times against Elves, and winning on the ground is really hard. I mean, you saw in that game, Bobby had, by the time he started to get some sort of momentum going, he had no end of chump blockers at the ready for Tarmogoyf.
Do you think it's possible that Nimble Mongoose slides out?
Yeah, if you see Ben sideboarding right now, those Nimble Mongooses are in his sideboard.
Makes sense. You still need some amount of Tarmogoyf, though. Somebody's got to tie up the ground, and with the Rough Tumbles and Grim Lavamancers, there's more of a possibility of the Tarmogoyf eventually doing something.
Yeah, Tarmogoyf in concert with Pyroclasm is great against Elves. Game 1, I don't think it's a very effective tool.
How do you feel about Surgical Extraction? I know it's not normally a tool against Elves, but is there any possibility that Ben wants to get funky and just be like, I'm gonna bolt your Nettle Sentinel and then surgically extract it? Or is that too vulnerable to Progenitus?
Well, the problem is that Elves is not the most linear combo deck. It has access to multiple paths to victory, including just winning with the beatdowns. So paying 2 life and spinning a card to do something that may not even disrupt the game plan that Bobby's on, I think is too narrow.
Fair enough.
Just creatures and removal. That's the best plan I think that Ben has against Elves. Don't get too funky.
What's Bobby thinking that Ben's going to be bringing in? I mean, is there like a standard operating procedure for these rug decks? Because I know obviously Ben plays rug quite a bit.
Yeah, there's often a mixture. I wouldn't be surprised to see Bobby bring in the Abrupt Decays because he can reasonably anticipate Grim Lavamancer, and it's not dead. I mean, if he doesn't have Grim Lavamancer, then he'll have Delver of Secrets or Tarmogoyf, and that's fine there. You're usually looking at some mixture of Grim Lavamancer, maybe Rough Tumble, maybe Fork Bolt, maybe just some additional removal spells like Chain Lightning. The rug decks, maybe occasionally you'll see Submerge, although Submerge is not that effective a tool against Elves. So those
particularly, sometimes they just don't have any forests because they bounce them all.
Right. So it's not the most. You can expect some amount of removal. Grim Lavamancer is generally the best card they're going to have access to. Sometimes they have Fork Bolt. Sometimes you see Rough Tumble.
What about Fire Ice? Are we going to bring Fire Ice back?
I still see some rug lists that have a Fire Ice in them. It's
Okay.
not out of the question.
Bobby, one on the lap, 6 on the table. Takes a long look at his hand.
Well, Ben looks like he has a hand of Rough Tumble, Force of Will, but nothing really proactive.
Yeah, but Rough Tumble is a potential game winner.
Hard to get away from that one.
Yeah, particularly if you have mana.
Well, I don't know if he has a second land just yet. I'll say it's Delver. So Delver of Secrets plus Force of Will plus Rough Tumble. Pretty close to the ideal hand that Ben could ask for here. Bobby with a Forest and a Deathrite Shaman.
I always wonder if the format ever became too full of things like Rough Tumble and Grim Lavamancer, is it possible that we could see some kind of like green leyline action?
Maybe.
You know, the +0/+1, and gaining, the gaining life thing is kind of just incidental, but
Not out of the question.
Insectile Aberration flips.
Ben with the second one. Ben playing a very aggressive game plan, just immediately Force of Willing that Deathrite Shaman.
Just slowing Bobby down, trying to put some pressure on him with the Delvers.
A classic Delver game plan.
I mean, he's effectively got him on a 3-turn clock. Because if he wants, he can ensure that the Delver flips by brainstorming on his upkeep.
So we see Bobby fetch here and play a Zenith for 1. That goes and gets a Death Right Shaman.
Deathrite Shaman serving as both an accelerator and a life gain tool in case it comes to that. Because the way this game's looking, it might.
He may need 1 turn of breathing space to be
Right.
able to untap and then do his thing.
Right.
So Ben's going to untap. He is now contemplating whether he wants to brainstorm on the upkeep because he has no second land. So this brainstorm is likely to be his entire turn.
He also has to think about what he would show his opponent, because the only two spells in his hand are Rough Tumble and Spell Pierce, neither of which he wants Bobby to know about.
Right. It's full of mysteries. Shows Rough Tumble.
That's an aggressive one to show.
Well, he may know that he might not be able to cast that to any effect this game.
Why is that?
He may not have the sufficient mana.
Just not getting up to 2?
Yeah.
That's true. I guess he's going to have to wait a couple turns.
Right. And I mean, he's got him on a 2-turn clock, so. And here we go. Bobby's going to go for it now. There's a glimpse.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Here's a Nettle Sentinel. And it looks like he might have just dead-ended already on this glimpse.
So he does have Wirewood Symbiote or Elvish Visionary as options.
Yeah. I mean, he needs to get something back to his hand to keep going here. I mean, it's questionable to me to show the Rough and Tumble even if you can't cast this game because there's still game 3.
Yeah.
So that was like the whole joke. It was like, it's like a miracle grocery. So I was like, yeah.
All right, so he's going to add a mana with a Deathrite Shaman, returns Nettle Sentinel.
Yeah, except all your spells be more than 50. Like, you have more than 50.
Now he's going to draw off Glimpse.
Okay, it's flipping a Delver on literally every play. And it makes your brainstorms kind of awesome. So you can tuck extra lands and then cast it. Plus, if you've never flipped your Delver in your lane, it's pretty awesome.
What I think would just be absolutely brutal is if Ben Wienburg had a second land and he just shows the Rough Tumble, misses his land drop again, implying he's going to miss again next turn from the Brainstorm, but it's all a ruse.
Well, the thing is that Ben just kills him, unfortunately, because Bobby goes to 3 and then
Yeah,
negative 3.
and he doesn't really have the land either, I know.
I agree with you. That would be sweet. All right, so Ben just attacks and says go. Second Cradle to draw. Bobby has flooded out pretty badly here. 4 lands in hand.
Yeah. Like, I just had my opener and, like,
Axe it in.
All right, game
Brutal.
3. Classic Rug Delver game plan. Get a throw on the table and fend off your opponent just long enough.
I mean, nobody ever said a Rug Delver deck needs to draw 2 land.
Oh, no.
No, because that would be ridiculous for somebody to say since it's not true.
Well, it has 18 lands and 4 wastelands, so it
Yeah.
regularly wins 1 land games.
Yeah, I mean, 14 colored mana in your deck is very legacy.
It's what makes the Rug Delver mirror match pretty heinous at times.
Yeah,
As I like to call it, the Stone Rain Mirror.
it's definitely the stone something. That's for sure.
Just nothing but raises.
Yeah. Dude, I don't know. I think that Rug Delver is... I think that these people are tripping not playing True Name Nemesis. I know it's like 3 months ago, but True Name Nemesis is like... Isn't that guy like, what's going on, man?
3 mana is too much.
Man.
3 mana is just too much.
You still play him in a Stoneforge deck though, right?
Right, well, the Stoneforge deck's playing a slightly slower game.
Well, you both win when you get him to 0.
Well, that's definitely tautologically true. I'm not sure how informative of an analysis that is. You do win the game. That is the rule of Magic. When they hit 0, you win.
Or they lose.
Right, whichever. 6 of one, half dozen of another.
It's important. It's important for things like multiplayer.
Yep. Game 3 about to get underway. This is for a top 8 berth. Again, only 8 rounds today. We fell just a few players short of the 9th round. And so no room for intentional draws here.
What an appropriate description. A top 8 berth, given that today is Easter.
Yes. I suppose so.
Ben Wienburg looks to be happy to be here.
Well, he just won the game, so. There's usually a direct relationship between what the outcome of the previous game was and Ben's body language at the table.
Yeah, he's like Madonna. He just like expresses himself.
He's just expressing himself.
Absolutely. For those not familiar.
Don't go for second best, baby, you know?
Yeah, for those not familiar, Madonna is like the Lady Gaga of the 80s and 90s.
She's like the Ben Weinberg of pop music.
Yes. Ben could do a table, like a coffee table book too, like Madonna, just called Rug.
Yeah.
And it's just, various iterations and, memories of playing Rug in various legacy tournaments, various opponents you face.
Some artsy black and white photos of Trigon, Predator, and what have you.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Dude, I'm pretty sure Ben should just talk to Kibler.
Yes.
Yeah, after that playmat situation, I think that Kibler might be exactly the person to help. Kibler and his GF Natalie might be exactly the people to help make the Trigon Predator coffee table book a reality.
I mean, the Kibler photos are not even the best or worst of it, depending on perspective.
Yeah.
So Bobby looks like he's happy with his 7.
For those interested, check out BrianKibler.com. It's the greatest authority on all Brian Kibler related matters.
It's like the Wikipedia for Brian Kibler. All right.
Make sure to include a tweet at semi-sober or Tom Martell for any information on the site's management.
All right.
Bobby on the play. This ain't no manaless dredge type of situation.
No, there's plenty of mana. He actually has creatures that make mana, in fact. Ben Weinberg with a draw of Rough Tumble off the top.
Yeah, with Lightning Bolt as well, he's going to play a real control game this time as opposed to the Delver of Secrets action we just saw.
Although he cannot fend off Bobby forever, Roy Delver still needs to be applying pressure.
Looks like Bobby's primary plan here is the natural order. Like a turn 3 natural order. See if he can sneak that in.
All right, here comes the beats. Keep in mind, Bobby also knows that Rough Tumble is something he has to be concerned about because he saw it revealed to that Delver of Secrets in the previous game.
Definitely.
So there's a Wirewood Symbiote and a Birchlore Ranger.
Looks like Spell Pierces could potentially make this natural order real awkward.
But you can see why Bobby would want to move to Progenitus in the post-board games.
Oh, yeah.
Between these bolts and Rough Tumbles, all he needs to do is sneak a natural order and try to win the game. Critterhoof Behemoth is much harder to execute in the face of all of Ben's removal.
Do you think there's any chance Bobby can get away from the Spell Pierce, or get away from having his natural order Spell Pierce this turn?
Well, if he draws Gaia's Cradle, it's real easy. That makes it real easy.
How many Dryad Arbors does he have?
There are 2 in the list.
Nice. Most people don't play 2, do they? I mean, that's kind of... Although what I like is this is just a lot of land. 6, 10, 18 land for a green deck. Some of these green decks I see playing like, 15 land or whatever.
Yeah, just not an ounce of shame, really.
No. I think 18 land is how many Saito played in his elf deck in Berlin. At the Louise's Berlin.
Yep.
He was on the real streamlined, cheap, minimalist version.
So here's an Elvish Visionary. 2 more mana. There's a Symbiote.
Man, this is going to make Rough and Tumble painful. The Dryad Arbor, too. Do you think that maybe getting the Dryad Arbor was a little excessive?
It's a little ambitious, yeah. It's possible that he just doesn't believe that Ben has it based on the fact that he was willing to bolt the symbiote and just pass on turn 2. I think that might be reading a little bit too much into it, but it's possible this is Bobby's logic. Gets in for 2, I like it. Oh my God, this is this is gonna be a rough tumble for the ages.
Yeah, it's going to be a rough one. You know it's bad news when he taps the wasteland like that. Man, 2 Dryad Arbors.
Wow. The second Dryad Arbor is just excessive, you know?
Well, he already had one in his hand.
Right, I'm just saying.
Oh, yeah, getting one.
Getting that rough tumbled away, too. I mean, come on, let's just be reasonable here. There's no reason.
This is legacy. This is not a place of reason.
But Ben looks like he's floating out pretty badly right now.
Yeah, Ben's deck that wants to go up to 2 land.
Well, he has 3 more in his hand.
Yeah, I know. This is quite literally almost half of the land in his deck.
All right, so Elvish Visionary, Bobby trying to rebuild. Gives him a beatdown. Daze the draw for Ben.
What is Ben's life total at?
Well, he got hit by, I believe he got hit by Nettle Sentinel twice and the Llanowar Elf once at minimum.
Yeah, so I think it should be a little bit lower because he's also, but either way, we've got Queer Ranger joining the party.
Yep, life total is up to date now, Ben at 15. So Queer Ranger resolves. Bobby goes ahead, untaps his Llanowar Elf, returns the forest to his hand, casts Elvish Visionary. And I think we're going to see Ben hard cast a Daze here.
Probably should have played that forest first.
Yeah. Well, I think he, again, wants to give himself the upside of drawing the Cradle. And Ben's had plenty of opportunities to Daze him in earlier turns, so.
Fair enough.
All right. I think Ben finally drew a piece of action here.
Is it a Vendilion click?
Yeah.
For the Skies beatdown? There is no disguising that.
Bobby pump fakes with the Bayou there. He has Abrupt Decay in hand, and the Bayou is his only black source. So in the face of Ben's Wasteland, I don't think he's going to want to commit this to the table until he's sure he wants to use it. So he's going to be using
Or protects it with Queer Ranger.
Right. And here's Natural Order.
This is going to be brutal.
It's a pretty juicy spell, Pierce.
Yep.
You have to wonder with Ben not really doing anything, would Bobby be better served just attacking him with creatures?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice to just be giving him the business. Because, like, right now, the more he does, the more he just keeps walking into the Rug Delver tempo tricks.
You know, what else could Bobby even presume was in Ben's hand at this point? Creatures certainly would have been cast. All right, you see Vendilion click at the end of the turn. From Ben, looks at the hand of Bayou, Abrupt Decay, and Elvish Visionary.
Now, does he take the Abrupt Decay here? He does. He is serious about this beatdown.
He's got to get something going.
I respect that. I'm a firm believer in it.
And Ben immediately paid off here as Grim Lavamancer is the draw.
That's ridiculous. Grim Lavamancer is just going to tear through these elves.
Well, don't speak too soon here, as Bobby has just drawn a Natural Order.
Wow. Now that's going to get spell pierced again, though, right?
I do not know the contents of Ben's hand currently, but Bobby might be put into a position now where he has to just go for it ASAP. Grim Lavamancer puts him under the gun. All right, goes for it again. And there's another spell pierce. And now Bobby is in a lot of trouble.
Brutal. That's basically all there is to say about that.
Yeah.
Top 8 on the line. We talked about how devastating some of these sideboard cards would be. Grim Lavamancers, Rough Tumbles.
And now it's not really clear if Bobby's going to be able to develop enough of a board in the face of this Grim Lavamancers. His way to beat this card is essentially natural order, and now he has neither the mana nor the natural orders to get that going.
And Ben has neither the time nor inclination to let him rebuild.
Mm-hmm. There's a Forest and a Wirewood symbiote. And Ben may just be happy to trade.
Maybe this is one of the spots where you just call the whole thing off and you bounce your Queer Ranger.
Yeah, you put him to the test. You saw what kind of man Ben Wienburg is, and now you just do a redo. But it looks like Bobby's going to trade.
How many Abrupt Decays does he have access to?
He
3?
has 3 copies in his sideboard. Well, the problem is, even if he is able to assemble some Abrupt Decays here, he has nothing to work with. And Ben's deck is much less predicated on interlocking pieces.
Bobby spell piercing the Glimpse on an empty board with no mana.
There's an Elvish Visionary.
Not wanting to take any chances. And this seals it up.
Yeah. Wasteland on the Bayou. Now, not even the hope of drawing Abrupt Decay.
Bobby almost down to 0 cards, period, in any zone.
Almost no memory of him participating.
Yeah, it's been a rough one.
All we need is a Ley Line of the Void.
Yeah.
For the full perfectos. Yeah, I suspect this game Bobby might have gotten a little too hung up trying to win with natural order when he had the opportunity to just attack.
He could have slow played it a little bit. I think that the real turning point, though, was that daze on the Elvish Visionary. Mm-hmm. I think that ever since then, he's just been a little bit short at each step, you know?
Yeah. Ben reveals to Delver, does not find a spell. It looks like he's going to crack his fetch land before he draws.
You're never too far ahead for tight technical play.
Nope. And this is not Ben's first rodeo with this 60 cards.
No.
Or 58 of these 60 cards. The Cataxian Probes might be new additions.
Force of Will for the full-on.
Ben still trying to give Bobby no room here. There's an attack. Bobby says no blocks. The Lawman's is going to finish off. And Ben Wienburg
Top 8ing another.
wins 2 games to 1 against Bobby. Colegrove playing L's very tight match. Ben, predictably, a bit of a dog in the first game, but his sideboarded cards, particularly Rough Tumble, of a lot of value there.
Oh, yeah.